Malik had always dreamed of living in a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. After years of hard work, working double shifts, saving every penny and skipping vacations, he finally bought his first house in the suburbs. It was a beautiful two-story home with a clean white fence, a small garden in the front yard, and his favorite part, a private pool in the backyard. For Malik, this was more than just a house. It was a symbol of success, a place where he could finally relax after long years of struggle. In the first few weeks, things seemed calm. The air was fresh, the mornings were quiet, and birds often sang in the trees behind his backyard. Some neighbors waved politely, others just nodded. Nobody was exactly warm, but nobody was rude either. Malik didn't think too much of it. He was just happy to have his own space. Soon he began to notice little things. A few people would stare a bit too long when he walked past. One woman crossed the street when he came jogging toward her, even though he smiled and greeted her. A man once clutched his dog's leash tighter as Malik passed by. It wasn't loud racism. It wasn't yelling or name-calling. It was quiet and hidden. But it was there. Malik had felt it before. He knew this kind of behavior. He brushed it off. He told himself, "It'll get better once they know me." Then came Karen. Karen lived 2 houses down. She was a middle-aged, white woman with short blonde hair and a loud voice. The first time they met, she smiled too hard and spoke too sweetly. "Oh, so you're the new neighbor," she said, holding a glass of lemonade. "Well, welcome. You must be doing pretty well to afford this place, huh?" She laughed, but her eyes didn't smile. Malik just nodded politely. He had met people, like Karen before, people who pretended to be nice but always had a sharp edge in their words. At first, she tried to make small talk. She complimented his garden, asked about his job, and even joked about using his pool someday. He chuckled lightly, thinking it was just a joke. But then, strange things started happening. One day Malik came home early from work. He had a slight fever and decided to take the rest of the day off. When he walked into his backyard, he froze. Karen and her teenage son were swimming in his pool, laughing, splashing, acting like it was theirs. They didn't even look surprised to see him. Karen smiled and said, "Oh, hey, hope you don't mind. It's so hot today and your pool is just perfect." Malik was stunned. "You're in my backyard," he said quietly, trying to stay calm. "This is private property." Karen shrugged. "Well, yeah, but we're neighbors. I thought you'd be okay with it. It's not like we're damaging anything." Her son climbed out of the pool and grabbed a towel that Malik didn't recognize. It looked like they had brought their own things, as if they had planned this. Malik took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but you can't just come into my yard without permission. This isn't okay." Karen rolled her eyes. "Wow, you don't have to be so serious. It's just a pool. We're all part of the same community, right?" Malik didn't want to argue. He simply said, "Please leave," and walked back inside. He watched from the window as they slowly packed up their things, muttering under their breath. That night, Malik couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't just about the pool. It was about respect. If he had walked into Karen's backyard and jumped into her pool, the police would probably be involved by now. But somehow she felt entitled to his space, as if it was hers to use whenever she pleased. A few days passed. Malik hoped that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The next weekend, while Malik was out running errands, Karen returned. This time, she brought 2 of her friends and a couple more teenagers. They set up lawn chairs, snacks, and music. Malik's camera system, which he had installed for security, recorded everything. When Malik saw the footage later, he was furious. They had stayed in his backyard for nearly 3 hours, swimming, laughing, making themselves at home. He couldn't believe the nerve. The next morning, he walked over to Karen's house and rang the doorbell. She answered with a big smile. "Oh, hi again." Malik didn't waste time. "I saw the camera footage. You used my pool again. With guests. Karen's smile faded. Well, you weren't home. And like I said, it's hot. We didn't think it would be a big deal. It is a big deal, Malik said firmly. This is trespassing. I've asked you not to come into my yard. Karen's voice suddenly changed. It got sharper. Why are you being so aggressive? I'm just trying to be neighborly. Most people wouldn't make a fuss over something so small. It's not small, Malik replied. You're using something that doesn't belong to you and you're doing it without asking. That's not okay. Karen crossed her arms. Well, maybe if you weren't so uptight, people wouldn't avoid you in the neighborhood. Malik took a deep breath and walked away. Over the next few weeks, Malik noticed more changes. Neighbors, who used to wave, now looked away. A man who once offered to help him move furniture now acted like he didn't recognize him. It was subtle, but Malik felt the shift. Karen had been talking. He didn't know what she was saying, but he could guess. One day, Malik heard two neighbors whispering near his fence. I heard he yelled at Karen. Really? That's not surprising. He gives off a certain vibe. Malik stood silently, behind the fence, listening. He felt a wave of sadness and anger wash over him. He had done everything right. He had been calm. He had been polite. But somehow, he was being painted as the problem. The final straw came one morning when he found trash in his backyard. Candy wrappers, soda cans, and a broken flip-flop. More signs that someone had been there again while he was gone. Malik sat, on his porch, looking out at the pool, and felt the weight of everything sink in. He had worked so hard to build a peaceful life. But now, his own backyard, his sanctuary, felt like a battlefield. That night, Malik didn't sleep. He sat with his laptop going through the camera footage, writing down times, dates, and every incident. He decided something had to change. He wouldn't be silent anymore. He wouldn't just let people like Karen walk all over him. He wasn't angry because of just one swim. He was angry because it kept happening. Because Karen didn't respect his space. Because her actions made others doubt him. Because even when he was calm and reasonable, he was still being treated like the villain. Malik had seen this story play out before, with other people, in other neighborhoods. But this time, it was happening to him. And this time, he wasn't going to let it slide. Something inside him clicked, a quiet strength. He decided it was time to turn the tables, not with shouting or violence, but with proof, truth, and the kind of justice that couldn't be ignored. He wasn't just going to stop Karen from using his pool. He was going to make sure everyone saw the truth, because enough was enough. Malik's quiet hope that Karen would stop using his pool without permission was quickly shattered. Despite his clear request, she didn't just continue. Her behavior grew worse. What started as one unauthorized swim turned into something much bigger. Karen and her family seemed to feel entitled to his pool, as if Malik's property was a public space meant for anyone to enjoy. At first, Malik thought maybe Karen didn't understand the seriousness of what she was doing. So after he caught her again on his security cameras, he tried to talk to her once more, hoping a calm conversation would make her realize her mistake. He walked over to her house and knocked on the door. When Karen answered, she looked surprised, but tried to act friendly. Karen, Malik said politely but firmly, I need to talk to you. I've seen you using my pool several times without permission. This is private property, and it's not okay for you or your friends to come in like this. Karen blinked slowly, her face showing a mix of annoyance and disbelief. Malik, I told you it's just a pool. It's hot outside, and I thought since we're neighbors it wouldn't be a problem. I didn't mean any harm. Malik shook his head. It's not about harm, it's about respect. You don't have permission to use my property. I've asked you to stop. Karen's smile faded, and suddenly she seemed colder. You're being too serious about this. I'm just trying to be friendly. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Malik could feel his patience thinning. "It's not nothing to me. This is my home, my space. You're invading it without my consent." Karen crossed her arms and said, "You know, Malik, sometimes people like you, new neighbors, can be a bit defensive. Maybe if you were more welcoming, we wouldn't have this problem." Her words hit Malik like a slap. The implication was clear. He was the problem, not her. Malik took a deep breath and left, feeling more frustrated than ever. He realized this wasn't just about the pool anymore. Karen wasn't interested in being a good neighbor. She was defending her actions and trying to make Malik feel like the bad guy. But Malik was not going to back down. Determined to protect his home, Malik decided to take steps beyond just talking. He began collecting evidence, carefully. Every time Karen or anyone else trespassed, his security cameras caught it. He saved all the footage and made notes about when it happened, who was there, and what they were doing. He also talked to some neighbors, trying to find out if anyone else had noticed Karen's behavior. A few were hesitant at first. Some didn't want to get involved, worried about drama or making enemies. But slowly, a few people admitted they had seen Karen using Malik's pool, or heard about her entitlement from others. They shared stories about her being pushy or rude in other situations too. One neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, told Malik quietly, "You're not the first one Karen has treated like this. She's had problems with other neighbors in her past neighborhoods, too." This gave Malik more reason to believe that Karen's behavior was part of a pattern. She wasn't just careless. She was acting out of a sense of privilege, assuming she could do whatever she wanted because of who she was. As Malik gathered more proof, Karen's attitude started to change, but not in a good way. She became defensive and angry when Malik confronted her. Instead of apologizing or stopping, she began spreading rumors about Malik in the neighborhood. She told anyone who would listen that Malik was aggressive and unfriendly, trying to paint him as the troublemaker. Malik noticed the change immediately. The warm smiles he once received were replaced by cold stares and whispered conversations. Neighbors who used to say hello now avoided him. Even some people who had been friendly before acted like they didn't know him. It hurt. Malik felt isolated and misunderstood, but he refused to give up. He knew he was right to protect his home, and he would prove it. One afternoon, Malik went to the local police station to report the trespassing. He brought his evidence, the videos, notes, and witness statements. The officer listened politely, but told Malik that without direct confrontation or damage, the police couldn't do much. They advised Malik to handle it through the Homeowners Association, HOA, or take legal steps. Malik left feeling discouraged but not defeated. If the police couldn't help, he would find another way. Karen, meanwhile, used this as another excuse to tell people Malik was making a big fuss over nothing. She claimed Malik was harassing her by involving the police and making a scene. The tension in the neighborhood grew. Malik found himself caught in a quiet war, where words and actions were twisted to create stories that weren't true. It was exhausting to be misunderstood so deeply. But Malik was not alone. A few neighbors started to see the truth. They came forward quietly, supporting him, and expressing concern about Karen's behavior. Malik also reached out to a lawyer to understand his rights better. The lawyer explained that Malik could take legal action for repeated trespassing and defamation. Malik realized this was going to be a battle that required patience and careful strategy. Throughout all this, Malik kept reminding himself why he was fighting. It wasn't just about a pool or even about Karen. It was about standing up against unfair treatment and demanding respect in a place he now called home. He spent hours reviewing the footage, organizing his evidence, and preparing to present his case. He kept detailed logs of every incident, including dates, times, and descriptions. He documented Karen's attempts to turn neighbors against him and any other behavior that made him feel unsafe or unwelcome. Despite the pressure, Malik stayed calm. He refused to respond with anger or hostility because he knew that would only make things worse. Instead, he focused on facts and truth. But Karen was relentless. She continued to use the pool when Malik wasn't home. She brought more friends, loud music, and sometimes even parties. It was as if she wanted to prove that Malik had no control over his own property. Malik knew he had to act quickly before things got out of hand. He started speaking more openly with neighbors who supported him, encouraging them to stand with him if needed. Some neighbors who had been silent before now agreed to back Malik up if there were any legal or HOA meetings. Karen's actions were making her unpopular. More and more people began to see her as a troublemaker who refused to respect boundaries. At the same time, Malik was preparing to formally file a complaint with the Homeowners Association. He gathered all his evidence and drafted a letter explaining the situation clearly and calmly. He asked for their help in stopping Karen's trespassing and protecting his rights as a homeowner. Malik hoped the HOA would take the issue seriously. After all, rules about property boundaries and trespassing existed to protect everyone in the community. But Karen was ready with her own plans. She sent a complaint to the HOA accusing Malik of being noisy and hostile. She tried to paint herself as the victim once again. Malik was not surprised. He knew Karen was trying to manipulate the situation. Instead of reacting emotionally, Malik responded with professionalism. He included his evidence and asked the HOA to investigate the facts. The HOA began a formal inquiry, interviewing neighbors and reviewing Malik's footage. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip, and the story was no longer a quiet dispute. It was becoming something bigger. During this time, Malik found strength in the support of a few neighbors and his own belief that justice would prevail. He wasn't just fighting for his pool. He was standing up for fairness, respect, and dignity. Karen's sense of entitlement and refusal to acknowledge Malik's rights made her enemies in the neighborhood. Malik, meanwhile, quietly gained respect for handling the situation with patience and clear evidence. It was a difficult time, full of stress and uncertainty. Malik sometimes wondered if the fight was worth it. But every time he sat by his empty pool, imagining Karen's laughter there instead of his own, he knew he couldn't let this continue. He dreamed of the day when his home would be peaceful. Again, a place where he was welcomed, respected, and safe. That day was still far off, but Malik was ready for whatever came next. Because now, he was no longer just a quiet man protecting his pool. He was a man standing up against injustice, ready to fight with every tool he had, and he was just getting started. Malik realized that talking and asking politely was not enough to stop Karen from using his pool without permission. The problem was bigger than he first thought. Karen didn't respect him or his property, and simply asking her to leave wasn't going to work. He needed a stronger and smarter plan. He knew he couldn't let this situation continue, not just for himself but also to set an example for others who might face similar problems. So Malik started to think carefully about his next steps. He wanted to make sure everything he did was clear, legal, and powerful enough to stop Karen once and for all. He decided to begin by organizing all the proof he had gathered so far. He had security camera videos showing Karen and her friends entering his backyard and swimming in his pool without permission. He also had dates, times, and notes about each incident. This evidence was important because it clearly showed what was happening without relying on anyone's word. Malik spent hours reviewing the videos, making sure each clip was clear and easy to understand. He labeled every video with the date and time it was recorded. He wrote down exactly what happened in each video, who was there, how long they stayed, and what they did. He made a detailed timeline of every time Karen had trespassed. This way, Malik was preparing to tell the full story to anyone who would listen. Whether that was the Homeowners Association, the police, or even a judge. But Malik didn't want to stop with just videos and notes. He also wanted to build support in the neighborhood. He knew some neighbors had noticed Karen's behavior but were afraid to speak up. Some thought it wasn't their business, while others worried about getting involved in a conflict. Malik believed that if more people spoke out, it would be harder for Karen to continue her actions without consequences. So he quietly reached out to a few neighbors he trusted. He talked to Mrs. Johnson, the woman who had told him before that Karen had caused problems in other neighborhoods. Mrs. Johnson admitted that Karen had a history of acting entitled and rude. Malik also spoke with Mr. Perez, a young couple who lived nearby, and a few others. These neighbors shared their own stories about Karen's rude comments, her loud parties, and her disrespectful attitude. Malik encouraged them to join him in reporting Karen's behavior to the homeowners association. He told them that the community had rules to protect everyone's property and peace of mind. After hearing Malik's calm but firm words and seeing the evidence, some neighbors agreed to stand with him. They promised to speak honestly to the HOA if needed, and to support Malik in keeping the neighborhood safe and respectful. At the same time, Malik contacted a local attorney who specialized in property and neighborhood disputes. The lawyer explained Malik's rights and the best way to proceed. Malik learned that he could file a formal complaint against Karen for trespassing and harassment. He could also ask the HOA to take action based on their rules about property use and neighbor behavior. The lawyer advised Malik to continue documenting everything carefully, to avoid any confrontations that might make things worse, and to stay calm in all interactions. Malik felt relieved to have professional advice. He was ready to take the next steps but wanted to make sure he did it right. While Malik was preparing his case, Karen didn't stay quiet. She sensed she was losing control and tried to fight back by spreading false stories about Malik. She told neighbors that Malik was aggressive, unkind, and even dangerous. Some people who didn't know the whole story started to believe her. Malik noticed more neighbors avoiding him or giving him cold looks. It was painful for Malik. He had done nothing wrong. He was simply protecting his home and standing up against unfair treatment. But Karen's rumors were making the situation even harder. Despite this, Malik refused to respond with anger or accusations. He knew that fighting fire with fire would only make the problem worse. Instead, he focused on facts, evidence, and legal options. He kept recording and saving everything. He stayed polite but firm when talking to neighbors and Karen. After weeks of preparation, Malik submitted a formal complaint to the Homeowners Association. He attached all his evidence, videos, notes, and witness statements from supportive neighbors. He explained clearly and calmly what had been happening. Malik asked the HOA to investigate the situation and enforce the rules to protect his property and peace. The HOA took Malik's complaint seriously and started their own investigation. They sent letters to Karen and Malik asking for their sides of the story. They also interviewed neighbors and reviewed Malik's videos. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers about the case. People were curious and divided, but Malik stayed focused. Karen didn't take the HOA's investigation lightly. She responded with her own complaints, accusing Malik of being loud, hostile, and difficult. She painted herself as the victim again, hoping to confuse the HOA and keep Malik on the defensive. Malik didn't panic. He provided even more evidence, including detailed descriptions of Karen's trespassing and her false accusations. The HOA officers listened carefully. They could see that Malik had a clear record of events and had tried to solve the problem peacefully. During the investigation, Malik began to feel the weight of the situation. It was exhausting to deal with Karen's constant presence, the gossip, and the stress. But he also felt determined. He wasn't going to let Karen's disrespect and lies destroy his home life. As the weeks passed, more neighbors came forward. Some who had been silent out of fear or discomfort finally spoke up, confirming Malik's account. Others expressed relief that Malik was standing up for himself. One day, Malik heard news that the HOA had reached a decision. They were going to fine Karen for trespassing and warn her that if she continued, legal action would follow. It was a small victory but an important one. Malik felt a mixture of relief and caution. He knew Karen might not stop immediately, but this showed that his patience and hard work were making a difference. Around this time, Malik's story started to spread beyond the neighborhood. He had shared some of the footage and his experience, anonymously on a local community app. The post went viral. People from across the city and even other states commented, sharing their own stories of similar neighbors, and praising Malik for his calm and smart approach. A local news reporter reached out to Malik, wanting to interview him for a story about everyday racism and neighbor conflicts. Malik agreed, hoping the story would bring more attention to these kinds of problems and encourage others to stand up respectfully. The interview was a turning point. Malik spoke honestly about his experience, about the frustration of being misunderstood, and the importance of evidence and calmness in fighting unfair treatment. The story was published with Malik's permission, but without revealing his full identity, to protect his privacy. Public support poured in. People sent Malik messages of encouragement. Some even shared ideas for community events to promote respect and understanding among neighbors. Meanwhile, Karen's reputation suffered. Many neighbors no longer trusted her. The HOA's warning and fine made it clear she was crossing the line. She began to withdraw from public gatherings and avoided Malik's house. Malik's life began to feel a little easier. He still had to be careful, but he felt more respected and connected to his community. He continued talking to supportive neighbors and planning ways to help others facing similar problems. One evening, Malik sat by his pool, the place that had caused so much trouble but also became a symbol of his strength. He thought about how far he had come, from feeling powerless to taking control of his life and standing up for what was right. Malik knew the fight wasn't over. Karen might try to cause trouble again, but he was ready. He had learned the importance of evidence, patience, and community. More than that, he had learned to trust himself. His peaceful life was coming back, and this time, no one would take it away without a fight. Malik smiled, feeling proud. The pool was his sanctuary once more, a place of calm, respect, and victory, and he was ready for whatever came next. Malik's life was beginning to feel like it was returning to normal. After the homeowners association stepped in and warned Karen, she had stopped using his pool for a while. But Malik knew better than to think the problem was fully solved. Karen was stubborn, and she still held a grudge. Malik understood that sometimes people who feel entitled don't give up so easily. In the weeks following the HOA's decision, Malik remained alert. He kept a close eye on his security cameras, making sure nothing suspicious happened. He continued documenting every little thing, just in case Karen or someone else tried to cause trouble again. He wanted to be ready, to protect his home and his peace of mind. During this time, Malik also started thinking about how this conflict had affected him personally. The stress had been intense. Some days he felt exhausted and frustrated. It was hard to feel safe and comfortable in his own house when Karen's shadows seemed to linger everywhere. But Malik was a strong man, and he was determined not to let this situation break him. One evening, as Malik sat quietly by his pool, he reflected on the journey so far. The pool had become more than just a place to swim or relax. It was now a symbol of his fight for respect and justice. Every time he looked at it, he remembered how he had stood up for himself, how he had stayed calm and collected, and how he had won a small victory against someone who tried to bully him. But Malik also knew this was not just his fight. It was a fight for all the people who had faced similar disrespect or racism, the silent victims who didn't have the courage or support to stand up for themselves. Malik's story was a beacon for others, showing that with patience, evidence, and community support, it was possible to protect your rights. As the days passed, Malik began to connect more deeply with his supportive neighbors. They shared stories about their own struggles with difficult neighbors, racism, and unfair treatment. Malik listened and offered advice, drawing from his own experience. Together they started to imagine ways to make their neighborhood a safer and more welcoming place for everyone. One idea they discussed was creating a neighborhood watch group. This group would keep an eye on any suspicious activity, report problems quickly, and support neighbors who faced challenges. Malik was excited about the idea. It was a chance to build a community that looked out for each other and stood against injustice. With the help of a few neighbors, Malik organized a meeting to talk about the neighborhood watch. The turnout was better than expected. People were eager to participate, to take action, and to create a better environment for their families. Malik spoke about his experience with Karen, explaining how important it was to have clear rules, respect boundaries, and support each other. His calm and honest words inspired many. The meeting ended with a plan to start regular patrols and to share information quickly through a group chat. This new sense of community gave Malik hope. He felt connected, supported, and less alone in his fight. Meanwhile, Karen was growing more isolated. The HOA's warning had made her cautious, but her attitude had not changed. She avoided direct contact with Malik, but continued to make things difficult behind the scenes. One day Malik heard from a neighbor that Karen had been complaining to other residents about him, trying to spread rumors and create divisions. She claimed Malik was hostile and unreasonable, hoping to turn more neighbors against him. But this time, Karen's efforts didn't work as well. Many neighbors had already seen her true colors. They knew Malik's side of the story and trusted him. The neighborhood was starting to come together, standing against Karen's negativity. Malik continued focusing on his life. He worked hard, spending time with family and friends, and enjoying his hobbies. He found peace in small moments, like reading by the pool or cooking a meal with loved ones. One day, Malik's phone rang. It was a message from the local news station. They wanted to do a follow-up story about Malik's experience, highlighting how neighborhoods could come together to solve problems peacefully. Malik agreed to the interview, hoping it would spread a message of hope and courage. When the story aired, many people reached out to Malik, sharing their own experiences and thanking him for speaking out. Malik realized his fight had turned into something bigger than himself. He was becoming a voice for justice, respect, and unity in the community. But the fight was not over. Karen's resentment remained, and Malik knew he had to stay vigilant. One afternoon, Malik noticed something strange on his security cameras. A group of people was walking near his property, looking around suspiciously. Malik recognized some of them. They were friends of Karen. Malik quickly informed the neighborhood watch group. Together they decided to approach the situation carefully. Malik and a few neighbors went outside to greet the group, making it clear they were watching and that trespassing would not be tolerated. The group left without causing trouble, but Malik knew this was a warning. Karen was testing boundaries again, trying to intimidate him. Malik stayed calm but firm. He reminded himself that this was a test of his strength and patience. Over the next few weeks, Malik kept up with his neighborhood watch duties and maintained close communication with supportive neighbors. The group's presence was a deterrent to troublemakers, and the neighborhood felt safer. Malik also continued to work with the HOA, reporting any incidents and providing evidence when needed. The HOA supported Malik, enforcing rules and sending clear messages that trespassing and harassment would not be tolerated. Through it all, Malik remained focused on his goals, protecting his home, building a strong community, and standing up against unfair treatment. One day, Malik received good news. The HOA had taken further action against Karen, issuing a formal cease and desist order forbidding her from coming near his property or contacting him. This was a major victory. Malik felt relief wash over him. The legal backing gave him confidence that Karen's harassment would finally end. Still, Malik knew he had to be ready for anything. He kept his security cameras running, stayed active in the neighborhood watch, and maintained close relationships with neighbors. He also found ways to care for himself, managing stress through exercise, meditation, and spending time with family. Malik's story became an example of courage and perseverance. It showed how one person could make a difference by standing up calmly and confidently against injustice. As Malik sat by his pool one evening, watching the sun set, he felt a deep sense of peace. The fight had been hard, but it had made him stronger and more connected to his community. He knew the future might still hold challenges, but Malik was ready. He had built a life of respect, safety, and friendship, and he would protect it with all his heart. Malik smiled, feeling proud and hopeful. The pool, once a place of conflict, was now a symbol of victory and new beginnings. He was not just a man with a pool, he was a man who had faced adversity and won. Malik's life had changed a lot since the first day Karen stepped into his yard without permission. What started as a simple problem, a neighbor using his pool, had grown into a bigger fight about respect, fairness, and standing up against wrong behavior. Malik had learned many things on this journey, and in the final part of his story, he discovered the power of community, resilience, and hope for the future. After the Homeowners Association issued the formal cease and desist order against Karen, Malik felt a wave of relief. The letter was clear. Karen was not allowed to enter Malik's property or try to contact him anymore. This legal step made it obvious that Malik's rights were protected and that the neighborhood stood behind him. But Malik also understood that rules and orders could only do so much. Real change needed more than just papers. It needed people to believe in respect and kindness. Even though Karen was officially warned, Malik stayed cautious. He knew that people like her sometimes ignored rules when they thought no one was watching. So he kept his security system running every day, and he stayed connected with the neighborhood watch. This group of neighbors was more than just a team. They had become friends, a support system that made Malik feel strong and safe. Malik's days became calmer, but he never forgot the lessons he learned. He made sure to speak up any time he saw someone being treated unfairly, whether it was a small problem or a big one. His experience had taught him the importance of courage and standing together. One thing Malik realized was that communication was key. He started organizing regular neighborhood meetings where everyone could come together to talk about their concerns, share stories, and find solutions. These meetings helped people get to know each other better and created a stronger sense of belonging. At one of these meetings, Malik shared his story from the beginning. He spoke about the challenges he faced with Karen, the importance of gathering evidence, and how staying calm helped him through difficult times. His words inspired many neighbors who had been quietly struggling with their own problems. People began to see Malik not just as the man who had a fight with Karen, but as a leader who cared deeply about the community. He didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted everyone to feel safe and respected in their own homes. The neighborhood watch grew stronger too. With more people joining, they organized patrols during the day and night, especially when they noticed suspicious activity. This made it clear that the community was watching out for each other, and troublemakers would not find easy targets. Malik also worked with the HOA to create clearer rules about property use and respectful behavior. They made sure everyone knew the consequences of breaking these rules. This was important because some neighbors had been unsure about what was allowed, and clear guidelines helped prevent misunderstandings. While Malik focused on his neighborhood, he also thought about his own healing. The stress and tension from the past months had affected his mental health. He started visiting a counselor who helped him process his feelings. Talking about his experience made him feel lighter and gave him tools to manage anxiety. Malik also found joy in small things again. He spent more time with his family, enjoying laughter, games, and quiet moments. His kids loved playing by the pool, and Malik felt proud that he had created a safe space for them. One afternoon, Malik received a surprise invitation from a local community center. They had heard about his story and wanted him to speak at an event about standing up against racism and harassment. Malik accepted gladly. He saw it as a chance to share his experience with a larger audience and help others find their voice. At the event, Malik told his story in simple, honest words. He talked about the pain of being treated unfairly, the strength found in staying calm, and the importance of building support. The crowd listened quietly, many nodding as they related to his words. After his speech, people came up to Malik, thanking him for his bravery. Some shared their own stories, while others asked for advice. Malik realized his journey had touched many hearts, and that he was part of something bigger, a movement toward justice and understanding. Meanwhile, back in the neighborhood, things had settled down. Karen had moved away quietly after receiving multiple warnings and fines. Her departure brought a new sense of peace. Neighbors who had been nervous or divided before were now friends, sharing barbecues, celebrations, and helping each other out. Malik often thought about how much had changed in such a short time. His pool, once the center of conflict, had become a gathering place for neighbors. They swam together, celebrated birthdays, and simply enjoyed each other's company. The neighborhood was no longer just a place where people lived side by side. It was a community where people cared for one another. Malik's experience also taught him about the importance of hope. Even when things seemed difficult or unfair, hope gave him the strength to keep going. He knew that change didn't happen overnight, but with patience, kindness, and courage, it was possible. Looking back, Malik understood that his fight with Karen was about more than just a pool. It was about dignity, respect, and the right to live peacefully in your own home. He felt proud that he had stood up not with anger, but with determination and respect for the law. Malik's story became an example in his city. Local leaders invited him to help create programs teaching people how to handle conflicts peacefully and how to support victims of harassment. Malik was happy to share what he had learned, hoping to prevent others from going through what he had faced. Through it all, Malik stayed humble. He knew that life could bring new challenges, but he was ready. He had built a strong foundation, not just in his home, but in his heart and community. One evening, Malik sat by his pool, the water shimmering under the stars. He smiled, thinking about the journey, the fights, the friendships, the victories. He was no longer just a man protecting his pool. He was a man who had turned hardship into hope, fear into courage, and conflict into community. And he knew that whatever came next, he was ready to face it with strength, wisdom, and an open heart.